Meeting come to order. Everybody had the chance to look at the minutes. Any changes need to be done? If not, I look for a motion to approve them. Mr. Ken, have a second? Mr. Ferguson, all in favor say aye. Aye. Approved. Thank you. Going to have election of officers. Mr. Walsh.
Make a motion to nominate you as the chairman.
All right. Got it first. Anybody else?
Motion nomination cease.
All righty. All those for the nomination to cease, please say aye. Aye. All right. Motion passed. All for me being state chairman, all say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Motion passed. Vice President or Vice Chairman? All right, Mr. Walsh.
Nominate Mr. Bill Ferguson.
Need a second? All right. Anybody else?
Make a motion to cease nominations.
All right. I'll vote for the nomination to cease. Say aye. Aye. All for Ferguson. Say aye. Opposed? All right. Secretary.
Nominate Amber Russell.
All right. Have a second?
Second.
All right.
Make a motion to cease nominations.
All right. All those vote for the nomination to cease, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. All for Amber, please say aye. Aye. All right. Opposed? Amber? Updates from the department, Mr. Woodard. Excuse me, Chief Woodard.
Good evening, everybody. Everything's going good in the fire service right now. We've made a few runs, nothing really serious at this time, no house fires or anything with massive losses or anything. So we did have a meeting on the brush truck, a Zoom meeting, and went over some more pre-construction items that we had gone over. And so they're still waiting on the chassis to come in. Still doesn't have a delivery date on it. There's some more paperwork we have to fill out for Ford being the end user, because they was having problems with people ordering chassis and not having a buyer. So they've introduced some more paperwork we're having to fill out. So, but other than that, me and Mr. Carmen had gone over, talked about doing some SOGs that would coincide with the rescue part and the fire service, kind of mainstream that a little bit. We've still been working on that. So, but other than that, that's about it. Any questions?
Hey, how are y'all doing this afternoon? This is going to be kind of a joint report for EMS and rescue. The rescue portion's here at the beginning, but it's pretty short and sweet. Chief Woodard hit on the SOGs there for a second. Me and him are kind of jointly reviewing those with each other. We got a kind of a template from NTAS to review on those. It's a really big document. It's about a 200-page document. So we're kind of filtering through that, looking at what we can use, what we can't use, or what we need and what we don't need in that. But it's kind of a work in progress. Like he said, we're still working on that. But I'll move on into EMS. Responses for the month of October, we had about 154 calls for the month. We transported about 115 of those. I think the last time we were here, you guys asked about calls at the prison. So out of those 154 calls, about 20 of those were to the prison. That's about par for the course for this time of year. We hadn't seen a great influx in the COVID calls in the past month or so, which is good. We hadn't had a lot of transfers coming out of the hospital related to COVID. The last time we were here, you guys also asked about the vaccination inside the department. So we kind of did an anonymous poll of the department, and which everybody did actually answer and contribute to. But 42% of the department has been fully vaccinated, with about 58% of the department already having the virus and recovered from the virus. All of our digital radios that we've purchased for EMS and rescue, they've all been programmed and installed in all the pieces of equipment. They all seem to be functioning well, except for over on the western portion of the county on the 231 north and south side. They're still having a little bit of reception issues out there, I think. I think there's some talks about maybe trying to get on another tower out in that area to try to increase our reception in that area though. So that's kind of a work in progress as well. The next thing I got on the list is the ambulance purchase. I think I gave everybody a spec sheet on that. Well, it's the first 2 pages of the spec sheet. That's about a 10-page document. The other 8 pages are, I mean, it goes into the seat belts, the door handles, and all kinds of different stuff. But the most pertinent information is on those first two pages, which just talks about the chassis and the kind of the drivetrain and the 4-wheel drive part of it. I think the last time we were here, we were still kind of up in the air on whether we were going with a Ford or a Dodge. And we talked to several different departments that have used the Fords and either have already transitioned all their pieces of equipment over to the Dodges, or they're moving in that direction for one reason or the other. But we spoke to Vanderbilt, Cumberland EMS in Rhode Island, Panama City Fire and EMS, which is a fairly large department. And then we also spoke to Warren County EMS here in Tennessee, that has had some of the Fords, Chevys, and Dodges. But we came to the conclusion that it sounded like the Dodge was probably going to be the best route to go. There's still been a lot of injector issues and different things going on with the Fords that they've had issues with, and that along with some other things are why some of the departments that we talked to have started moving towards the Dodges. The Dodges historically have had a lot of transmission issues, but here recently they went to 2 different transmissions. You either have an Allison transmission now, or you have the other one that they went to that they seem to be having a lot better luck out of. But that was the decision that was made, was to try the Dodge chassis out. Hopefully it'll work for us. And it's a diesel, and it's a 4-wheel drive as well, which one of our ambulances that we currently have is a 4-wheel drive, and that's came in very useful in some of the winter months. I've got some other stuff on here to discuss, but if anybody has anything on the ambulance purchase, and I'm not really sure where we're at with the COVID funds or anything like that, I'll let the mayor address anything about that.
The federal government still hasn't released their final rule, and the state of Tennessee Finance Administration is doing educational seminars, and I think they did one on public health a couple of weeks ago, and I'm trying to go back. I wasn't able to watch it at time, so I'm gonna go back and watch it, stream it, and download the presentation and kind of see what was discussed on there, and see if maybe the ambulance purchase, if we can tie it back to COVID response, maybe we can use some American Rescue funds to buy the ambulance.
All right. The financial report for the ambulance service.
Hang on just a minute.
Okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
Quick question, the estimated quote of 256,330, is that pretty solid? And is that going to be delivered? No extra equipment needed, no extra funds needed to put additional equipment in, or?
So it doesn't come with radios, but we've already purchased the radios for it. Whenever we purchased the digital radios, we went ahead and included the radios for that ambulance. It doesn't include a cardiac monitor, but we've included the cardiac monitor and some other items with that COVID money. That number from what we got from the manufacturer, he said could fluctuate between now and the time we order it, depending on when that is, between $5,000 and $10,000, depending on how long we wait to get it ordered, because everything's just continually to increase in price right now. But when we talked to him the last time, which has just been a few weeks ago, that was a pretty solid number, give or take. And he said it could go down 5 to 10 or up 5 to 10. And then that all just depends on, when we purchase it. But that's fully equipment, fully equipped with the striping and, painting and everything like that. It just doesn't include the cardiac monitor, the radios, and then I think there was like a modem, a Sierra wireless modem for the internet that goes into it. That would be extra, but all that stuff is it's either in the COVID money or it's minor enough that we can build it into our budget that we have now.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, we do have to record. Did you guys maybe pass around some type of like wish list type thing with this new ambulance that maybe some of the people working on the ambulance would want, maybe include that with it? I think you touched on it just a little bit.
We actually included several of the field staff employees and a couple of the battalion chiefs on kind of looking on the inside of the cabinet, like the functionality of the cabinets, and then just different areas on like what works best here, what works best there, for the people that are riding in the back of it every day, day in and day out. Of course, whenever you ask for a wish list, you always get some really extravagant wish list things. So we did get some of those too. That may not be in the cards for the ambulance, but yeah, we did do that.
You have anything else?
Not on the ambulance. I was gonna move into the financial part of the report that I've got here. For the month of October, we collected $43,463.44 for the service. That brings our total physical year up to $179,953. We're just below where we were at this year, or this time last year. We were around $213,887, so we're just below that. And then we billed out about $95,856 for the month. I think the last time we were here, I think we only had one vacancy in the department. And then I think we had an application on file that had an application to potentially fill the vacancy. I want to say that application fell through for one reason or the other. I think that person ended up going to a different service versus coming to our service. But we do have one paramedic vacancy on A shift, and that vacancy has been there for several months. It's been there since around May. And then we also have a paramedic vacancy on B shift, and that vacancy has been there since September. We've also been given a notice from an EMT in the department that may be leaving before the end of the year, and then one from another paramedic on B shift that has been recruited by Nashville, Davidson County or Nashville Fire Department. And he starts the training academy in Nashville in January. So there's potentially 4 positions whenever those two come into play. So whenever we do these exit interviews with the employees, or whenever we talk to them, whenever they're leaving or they turn in a 2-week notice, we always ask them for the reasons on why you're leaving or why you're doing this, going here versus there. And we normally get about the same reasons most every time. And I just wanted to go over those. This is just some informative information. It's not to poke at anybody or say anything towards anyone. I just want to make sure that I talk about it and I do get it out there while we're all here and we can all listen. Then one of the first ones that we get is the pay within the department. We're a little bit lower than most of the surrounding counties around us. Sumner County has just drastically increased their pay within their EMS department. I think their start out pay for their paramedics has been jumped up to about $65,000 a year, which is pretty significant. Their start out pay is actually higher than Davidson County start out pay is now. WEMA is, their start out pay is comparable to ours, but they're looking at drastically increasing theirs as well because they're having a hard time with recruitment and retainment as well. I think they are short 21 people currently, and I think they have a couple of stations closed currently as well that they can't staff due to staffing shortages. Macon County just recently increased their start out pay and implemented like a 3-step pay plan. And theirs was pretty significant as well on their pay plan. And then Smith County, I compared all the counties around us is what I did. Smith County start out pay is higher, just their start out pay for their employees is higher than what we're currently paying our employees that have been here, you know, for any number amount of years. One of the things that we touched on in the employee policy committee, I'm not sure what the personnel committee, I'm gonna make sure I call it the right committee, was the employees' loss of overtime whenever they take a vacation day, which that's another thing that we usually get in these exit interviews is they talk about that. And most of the counties around us have made some sort of changes to their policy to where they do not lose their overtime whenever they take a vacation day. And, but that's one of the big factors that plays into, you know, them leaving here or going to another service versus staying here and us retaining them. And I've got this report more broke down in detail to kind of explain exactly what I'm talking about. And I may email that to everybody once the meeting's over. That way you have maybe more of a better perception of exactly what I'm talking about. Vacation and sick time. That's another thing that we usually get hit on pretty hard because they don't accumulate as much vacation and sick time as they would if they go to these other places. And then for the amount of hours that they work within a year compared to the amount of hours a normal 40-hour-a-week employee works, they don't obtain near as many sick hours or vacation hours. If you compare, they work about 2,880 hours a year versus about 2,080 hours is what a normal 40-hour-a-week employee works. But here they still get the same amount of vacation time and the same amount of sick time as a 40-hour employee does. And that's another thing that a lot of the counties around us have changed to where they accumulate more sick time or more vacation time, whether it's across the board or whether it's just in the emergency services field. They've done that to improve that in that area. And then of course, health insurance benefits. I mean, we have benefits, and then if you're a single person, it's great because I think our health benefits here for a single person are free or at minimal charge.
Right now, I think we contribute, going to January, it's going to go up to $527 if you're in the limited PPO. So that's by far the most popular one. So if you're just doing the employee yourself, your premium's basically covered. You don't have to have anything else out of pocket. It's when you go to family coverage or something like that, that it shoots up dramatically.
And the family coverage is the main one that we get the biggest complaint about, is it's not affordable. But that's another reason that they'll go to Sumner County or they'll go to Davidson County because it's more affordable and it's, you know, which I think even in the wage study, I think the wage study even said we were about 39 to 54% higher than the ones that they.
I don't remember the exact number, but we are also, in the insurance committee, we did put out a request for qualifications for an insurance broker to come in and do a comparison and look and see if we can save money and go to a different plan somewhere else. So we're currently examining that.
But anyways, those are the biggest things that we always hear whenever people leave or they don't come in the first place. Those are the main issues that we have. But we currently, to my knowledge, we've advertised for the 2 vacancies that we currently have, and then we have these 2 more potentially coming up, and to my knowledge, we don't have any applications in the pool to fill those spots. So they're currently being filled by the battalion chiefs. And then if anyone else calls out or anything, we're just using overtime to fill those vacancies. The biggest thing that myself and Chief Beatty are concerned about is if we continue down the road that we're on and we don't make any corrections in some of the stuff that I just named, that we may just continue to have more and more and more and more vacancies. And of course, we don't want that to happen. We don't want anybody to call and need an ambulance and then, for some reason, there not be one to send to them. So just some food for thought, things to think about. I know this is not the committee that covers a lot of those items. It would be the employee or personnel committee meeting, budget and finance committee, some other committees, but I know a lot of people that are in here sit on multiple committees. So I just wanted to touch on some of that. And the only other thing I have on here is, which this was kind of I'll say it's kind of a touchy subject, but it was definitely felt by, it wasn't felt by me, it wasn't felt by Chief Beatty, but it was felt by all the other staff at the service. And I feel like I would be doing them an injustice if I didn't bring them up. But the bonus pay that got paid out not long ago, it was based on, 40 hours a week or 80 hours in a pay period. And every employee that we have up there, their normal paycheck either consists of 16 hours of overtime or 40 hours of overtime. Whether if it's a short check, it's 16 hours overtime. If it's a long check, it's 80 hours overtime. And I don't know if that was a slip on mine and Chief Beatty's part. Maybe we should have been more involved in those meetings when they were happening, and maybe we should have called it more on the front end. But depending on whether it was their short check or their long check, those employees lost somewhere between $200 and $900 on that bonus check that, all the other employees, if you work a normal 40-hour work week, were not shorted. And I felt like we did them a really big injustice on not getting that money for them. But that was one of the most recent really big gripes and complaints. And we even had a handful of people threaten to walk out the door if it wasn't adjusted, which we did. We did make some phone calls and send some emails, but I think it was kind of on the tail end of when that bonus check was fixing to come out. So I don't know if we called it, in time, but just little small things like that, things that happen. I guess then they feel like they're kind of left on the back burner.
Is bonus pay based on their base salary or the actual hours they work? What's the policy state for that?
There is no policy. This was part of your budget. It was based on their normal work, what their normal work week is, which is 80 hours. The sheriff's department didn't get overtime for their people. My office staff's not getting overtime. And I would push back on that they lost anything. They didn't lose anything. At the end of the year, this is additional money they're getting on top of their normal pay. All it did was push them back 2 weeks. I mean, this is to compensate for 1 month where they weren't going to get any pay. So the bonus was to get them through that so that we had to switch over to the direct deposit because it was going to go from a current to accrued. And this is everything that was discussed earlier this year in the budget meeting. So this was first come up around March.
So basically it's like a 13, they paid twice a month.
Yeah, they're paid every 2 weeks.
So basically it was a 27th check form. Basically it said 26, 27.
Yeah, they're getting paid 27 times.
No, it was an extra check. Yeah, it wasn't money that they were actually physically at work for. It was a bonus check. And I explained that to them. Well, of course, I tried to smooth it over as best as I could. What I'm trying to say is like a normal 40-hour work employee, like Chief Beatty or most of the other normal employees throughout the county, it was their bonus check was the exact same check as what they would normally get. And our people's was shorted, depending on whether it was their long check or their short check. it was shorted between $200 and $900. I'm not saying that it was, I'm not saying they shouldn't be grateful for the money that they got, because it's extra money that they weren't physically here, that it didn't actually work for. It just didn't work out as far as on the fairness side, I guess, is the way they're looking at it, you know. And like I said, this is not to poke at anybody. I'm not saying that it's not my fault or Chief Beatty's fault that we didn't catch it on the front end and try to fight for it initially in the budget hearings. That's just one of the most recent, you know, gripes or complaints that we got within the department.
I want to say that during the budget and finance, we did not hear this scenario. I have heard about it lately. I do understand what you're talking about that extra check was to fill in the gap, because we went from being current on getting paid to we had a gap. So if we did not do what we did for that extra check, you wouldn't got anything. But that was why we did what we did, so that you wouldn't have that scenario. And so what you're saying to us, and I heard this just recently, and I said to Mr. Beatty, I said, we might want to talk about this in budget and finance, because that department is different than all the others, I'm assuming, because as a part of the job description, you're going to work those hours, you're going to work those extra hours in any given week. Am I right? Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long. And so it's a norm in that department to have a certain amount of your pay be overtime pay as you adjust things, as you go through your year of compensation, that's just kind of there. And that at this time, it wasn't. And so I think that was something that had we talked about that during budget and finance, I think we might have, I'm just speaking for myself, we might have tried to make an adjustment on that. We're not talking, I don't know how much we're talking about, because I did ask Mr. Bates, how much revenue is you talking about here? I don't know if he has that answer yet or not, but it's not something that we couldn't, I mean, I don't know, I guess we could have discussions about it. In budget and finance would be where it would want to go. But I don't want anybody to, because I know that extra check is a check that they were depending on, just like as if they was going through the regular year. And it was less than what they would normally receive, is what you're saying. Even though other departments, like now your department, do y'all have a certain amount of overtime in the sheriff's department that's kind of like
46-hour.
You're on a 46. So you got 6 then, don't you? So you're kind of facing the same issue.
And like I said, I didn't notice it, because when we got the notices in our checks for the bonuses, mine looked exactly the way it always does. So, but it didn't take long for the flow of people to start coming in my office. But anyways, like I said, I just wanted I felt like I was doing the employees an injustice for not bringing it up or talking about it. But the rest of that stuff is just stuff that I wanted to, you know, just put a buzz in your ear. Like I said, I know there's people that are on multiple committees.
Is the overtime mandated or voluntary?
I would say it's mandated, because it's part of their normal shift and their normal schedule. So with them working 24 on, 48 off, you'll have 2 checks that'll have 40 hours of overtime on it. And that's not extra overtime. That's their normal shift hours. And then you'll have that 1 short check that'll have the 16 hours versus the 40 hours.
Yeah, we went through that some years back when we were working on the budgets of that particular department. And that's where I really got that first understanding that that's kind of a normal, it's normal that department has a certain amount of overtime. Not that it's in addition, it is an addition, but that's the normal way of how that job functions. How many hours that you're on, you know, you're on that 24-hour shift, and to fill the voids, you know, that's kind of how it goes. So it's not optional.
No. And the overtime is incorporated into their yearly salary. And that's what they look at is their yearly salary. So like I was talking about, Sumner County just increased their start out paramedic pay to like $65,000. We're more around the $50,000 range, is where we're at, which I know Sumner County is a lot bigger service, a lot higher call volume. I think WEMA the increase that they're looking at moving to is around the same area. It's gonna be between like 65 and 67,000 start out pay. Macon County, the one that they just implemented not long ago, which is it's a 3-year step plan. So you'll actually top out within 3 years. They start out around 52, but within 3 years, they're up to around 64,220. So theirs is pretty significant. And then, like I said, Smith County's start out pay is already above the pay that our people are making currently that have been here for a number of years.
Now, recent events is indicating that these raises are occurring around us. And of course, it's sort of in every industry, not just this one, but specifically this one, because yes, I was aware of the fact that in 11 they shut down a station because they didn't have enough to staff it. So their problems are now becoming our problems. And as they are looking to fill their needs, they're raising the bar midstream. We're in a perfect world. We always like to tackle these things at budget time. My question is, and I don't know the answer to this, and you don't either, but it's something to throw out there. Did these surrounding counties do this in their budgetary times? So this was an increase that was already known about as they set their budget for the year? And Mayor, you may know this yourself about the ones around us, or are they dipping into revenues and they're doing this as a reaction to what's happening in the market, and they're increasing the pay as something that was outside the realm of the budgets when they were passed?
I know Sumner County's increase that just happened about a month ago. So it was mid-budget. I think they had a lot of employees that were taken by Nashville Fire Department or Davidson County area. And I think Chief Miller just went to their county commission and said, hey, we got to do something, or we're going to be shutting down stations and we're going to be in the same situation that, WEMA's in if we don't do something. I think theirs was mid-budget. Now, Macon County's, I'm not sure about theirs, but I know WEMA is in discussion right now and having meetings right now. I'm not sure if it's something that'll take effect in July or if they're looking at trying to get something done now to get their stations back open and operating.
Mayor, do you know of any, you may not know anything about that, whether that was part of their budgets?
Most of the things I've talked about the mayors, the EMS, most I heard was going to the 2472 in Rutherford County. And as far as everything else, most discussions involving emergency services has been use of American Rescue Funds.
Okay.
So that I don't particularly know about, but I will just point out to everybody that the Personnel Committee did pass and send on the Budget and Finance a drastic across the board increase as recommended in the compensation study.
Yeah.
The compensation study mentioned doing it in 2 phases, personnel sent doing it all at once. And that's about $236,000 in raises across the board for the county employees. Now, we also got to remember that that does not include the benefits. So it doesn't include Social Security, Medicare, and all that. So that's going to have to be figured in. But that has already been sent to Budget and Finance.
Is that proposed for next budget year? Or?
That's going to be up to them. The way it was done originally in the proposal from the consultants was you do one set of raises that would be immediately, and that was about $144,000 just in labor costs. And then if you go into your budget year next year, you go up to the next phase, which would be another, I think 80 to 100, well, whatever the difference between 236. So it'd be another increase there. The Personnel Committee voted to just go ahead and do those across the board raises. They did not specify. They just said, send it to Budget and Finance. They did not specify whether it was immediate or next budget year. So that's going to be discussion that's going to have to be held at Budget and Finance.
We had the luxury in our committee of not having to worry about where it was being funded from. Whereas Budget and Finance will have a different question outlook on that. So as it goes, that we pass it to them because they're going to be the mechanism that's going to tackle that issue, and whether it will be successful or not will be probably laying in their lap.
I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Carmen. That was very informative. And then first time some of us have heard anything like it. That's very good. Thank you. Oh, one other thing. Does anybody have any more questions about the truck or anything? I forgot to ask that a while ago. Okay, we'll move on to the county siren and community alert system. I got an email from this guy about the county siren system. I thought we had, a couple months ago, we decided that we weren't gonna have it fixed and that we would try to get everybody to do the community 911 alert system, promote it. And it was in the Vidette. I thought it was a very good write-up. And of course, everybody don't read the Vidette, but what do you need to, Mr. Mayor, we need to do is call this guy or tell him something?
I think the last meeting we had, the cost to repair it was between 12 and 13,000. Director Beatty's opinion was, given the increase in technology from the time that was put in, that it's probably not as cost efficient to do that. And we have these other methods, and that's where we talked about the, I think it's called Hyper Reach or whatever, through the Sheriff's Department and the 911 board just did a Facebook post on it today. There was an article in the Vidette. That way you can sign up, you can get email alerts, you can get text on your phone, they'll call you. That is a much more widespread reach than the siren here, which if you're just a little bit away, you can't really hear it. I've heard that complaint. So right now what we're pushing is that the hyper reach system through the Sheriff's Department and 911, because has a much wider reach across the entire county versus the siren.
I live out in Circle Drive and I didn't hear it all the time. I catch it every now and then, but when it went off, I very seldom ever heard it. So.
And I'll also point out, if you've got a weather app on your phone, like Channel 5 or Channel 2 or something like that, a lot of times you'll get a weather alert from them. Or if you've got National Weather Service on your phone, you'll get one from them as well, as if you're in that area that pings as a tornado or some kind of severe weather.
Any further discussion on this or anything? We just need to contact this guy or tell him that we don't want to fix it?
If you've got an email or something, we can send him an email that gives him a link to the Hyper Reach system, and he can sign up for text message or email, whatever he wants, however he wants to do it. And they'll also do a live call to a landline number. I think those are automatic.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Public, anything from the public?
Make a motion to adjourn.
We have adjournment.